All right, so today we're here to discuss demand and quantity demanded, ceteris paribus, a couple of other phrases that are in our chapter 3 text, and then we'll draw a demand schedule and also a graph to plot that demand curve for you. I'm going to just read you it's kind of my words on this demand definition, but the quantity of goods that a consumer is willing to purchase, and this is related to a series of prices. This would be varying prices in a specific market. This could be at a designated period of time, and it is all things considered equal. And so that's the ceteris paribus and where that phrase comes in, why I have that up there. Then also quantity demanded. And so, we're kind of breaking this down, demand versus quantity demanded. The quantity demanded is based on a specific price. And, this is a varying group of prices. But the specific price and how that breaks down, it says that, quantity demanded is the amount of goods a buyer is willing to buy at a specific price at a certain time in a certain market. And so, that's narrowed down to the specific price. And again, that's all things considered equal and ceteris paribus conditions. So I want to draw for you a demand schedule and show for you a little bit how that works. I've chosen price and quantity demanded because that's what we're trying to explain here today. And then we'll also do a graph. I'm not going to be too technical here and try to make this too perfect for time constraints. And, we're going to have 5 different scenarios today. Then I'll plot 5 different points on the graph. And what we're going to discuss today is pumpkins. And so pumpkins are going to be my little happy little thing that we extrapolate data about. And we're going to make our specific market the 407 flea market. And this is where a lot of crafters and farmers and things come together in the Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge area and sell their goods. And people come from all over the world to come to that flea market. So it's no telling where those pumpkins will end up. I'm going to make my market, the specific time, be the second week in October because I know that there are about 1 million people who come through that time of year to come and see the leaves. And so we'll make this 2014 just to make it more specific. Now this is called, again, a demand schedule. And it's just how we're going to write down the data. And these numbers I'm kind of making, I'll go back and explain more about this graph in just a minute, but these numbers I'm just kind of, pulling off the top of my head. I'm going to say Farmer John in scenario A makes his pumpkins $10. And so the quantity demanded would be 300 pumpkins. And then we'll go back over here and lower that price to $8. And you can see what happens in that relationship. And I'll go ahead and write it up here for you. Typically, when you see the quantity demanded go up, what has happened is the price has come down. And so, when the quantity demanded goes down, a lot of times that price has been driven up by some force on the market. So, we've got a higher number here, so that's correlating with that relationship with a lower price. And so let's lower that price yet again and raise this yet again to 600 pumpkins demanded. We'll lower this to $6, and then we'll make this 800 as our quantity demanded. And for easy math, we'll say 5 and 1,000. And so I can go over and plot them on the graph here, but the interesting thing to realize, any graph that you see, it's just lines unless you make that information make sense. So let's go over here and tell it that this is going to be the price on the vertical axis, which is where it's supposed to be in an economic model. And it's going to be in ascending order as soon as I tell it with the arrows directionally that needs to be ascending order. And so this would be $5, $6, $7, $8, and $10 for my model. That's our price. And then over here for numbers, this is going to be our quantity demanded of pumpkins. And so my quantity demanded is 300 on the lower end, and we'll do those in ascending order just the same. And 600, 800, and 1,000. All right, so now I can go ahead and begin to plot that. And we'll say for scenario A, it's going to land right here where the 300 and the 10 meet. And so that wipes out that one. And for scenario B, it's at the $8 and 500 mark, kind of lands right out there. I'm going to stretch that out a little bit so it fits better. Scenario B. And then let's go ahead and do scenario C at the 607 meeting place, $7 meeting place. Scenario C. And at 800 pumpkins demanded and $6, that's scenario D. We'll mark all these out. We've already got those. And then let's say scenario E is right out here, and that is at $5, which is the highest number, lowest price there, which makes sense since that's what our relationship says is going to happen. So we'll go up here and connect these dots, and we see our downward sloping demand curve, and that's how that's supposed to look. There's a lot of things that can affect that demand curve, and let's go ahead and talk a little bit about that, and then I'll show you kind of how that looks on the demand curve. Now, we can have substitute goods that the prices change on that affect, the prices of our substitute goods can affect the demand in the marketplace. And so what can happen is, let's just say that we like pumpkins, and pumpkins are getting expensive, but you can get Cushaw melons, and those are at a very low price. And so when somebody might want 10 pumpkins, that might, the demand might be for 10 pumpkins, but we might substitute a couple of those in our fall display with Cushaw because the price of Cushaw is so inexpensive. And the same would go for beef or chicken or some other element that we could say. And then complementary goods, let's just say that if the price of, we'll use the textbook example for this one because it's an easy one, is gasoline and tires. And I would have never said that I would have never understood this until I took this class, but the prices of complementary goods are related, and let's just say tires and gasoline. That was the example I gave. And so the price of gasoline goes way up, and so instead of going to the market 3 times a week as I typically do to feed my family, I might go 1 time a week and save the gas money. And so the demand on tires has gone down because the price of gasoline went up because we're not using the tires as much. So they're not wearing and tearing, and we don't need a replacement as soon, but the tire price may not have changed. So I hope you can understand that one as I explained it. And then income, this sounds self-explanatory, but let's go over it a little bit. Just because somebody has a higher income does not mean they have as much expendable income. They could have high debt. But if you have a change in your income, whether up or down, it will affect the market pretty much the same way. And then if you have a big bonus or something that comes in, there's lots of things that could happen with income. And then tastes and preferences of consumers is also going to have a cause shifts in the market. And who knows why anybody buys anything, right? I mean, we don't know, but we know there are fads and there are trends, and this year they might buy Planters peanuts, and next year they may buy Planters sunflower seeds, or they may pick a whole other, there may be a substitute good that's cheaper. So it's no telling what the demand is caused by, but we know that those shifts do happen, and those shifts occur in ways that are physically visible on this graph. And so if you see that when you're plotting out your graph, that here's your original demand curve, but let's say we do this at a different time and it changes, and so it shifts to the right the following week, okay? And maybe there's more the third week of October, there's more demand, more quantity demanded of pumpkins. And so that you would see this demand shift to the right. This can also be labeled as an outward shift. I need to make that very plain for you because that's interchangeable verbiage right there. But it would be indicated as a line to the right, a downward sloping curve. And that would be to the right, outward, but that indicates an increase in demand. And so if it goes to the left on this side of the original, this original demand curve, then it would be labeled as a decrease. And this one can be called left shift or an inward shift. And I had to learn that, study that really hard in the chapter. So I hope I've made that easier for you to understand, is that if it shifts to the left or shifts inward, it's a decrease in demand. If it shifts to the right, it's an increase. That can also be called an outward shift. And we will see you again to explain supply very shortly.